two simple kits of parts are mixed together and tipped in a heap on the table. The system is required to sort out and identify the parts and assemble models of a car and a ship. This time-lapse sequence speeds the process up about 16 times. The system explores the table with two TV cameras, one looking obliquely down from the far side for roughly locating objects, and one overhead looking vertically down for identifying them. For example, the car body is just visible at one edge of the oblique camera's picture. The program moves it into full view, locates it, and then moves it under the overhead camera for identification. Similarly, the axle, which was noticed earlier, is located and identified. When exploration is complete, the recognized parts are laid out prior to assembly. Mistakes and fumbles like this will be coped with by the system. It continues by picking up the car body and placing it in a pre-designated position and orientation. The axle is similarly picked up and laid out. The system will work first on the car, so any parts of the ship, such as this mast, are placed out of the way. The wheel that gave trouble earlier is treated as a suspect object and is moved to a clear part of the table for re-examination. Another attempt is made to pick up the wheel, this time successfully, and it's laid out. The peg which got in the way has not yet been noticed. Deciding that no more identified parts can be put away, the system tackles the large heap. It does not try to identify constituent parts, but simply looks for something sticking out it can grab hold of. In this case, it can pull off a wheel, and then looks to see what's happened to the heap. It does not know what it's holding, so a suitable empty space is chosen and checked visually. This time the peg is spotted where empty space was expected. The peg is identified, and a new place is chosen and checked. The wheel is put down, located, identified, and then laid out. The peg, being part of the ship, is put in a vacant space on one side, back to the big heap. The system once more looks for a suitable projection to grab, and checks visually that there is space for the hands to get hold of it. The ship's superstructure is pulled off, and the remains of the heap examined. Several pictures are necessary because of the size of the heap. The superstructure is put down in an empty space for identification. Parts are identified by examining the shape of their outline and the size, shape, and position of their visible holes. The superstructure is part of the ship, so it too is placed on one side out of the way. Returning to the heap, the ship's hull appears to be a suitable projection to grab with plenty of room for the hands. An attempt is made to pull it off, but it slips out of the hands. A second tactic is tried, a general grab at the heap, and another grab lower down. As a last resort, after selecting the best direction, the hand is ploughed through the heap to divide it in two. When the resulting debris is examined, the ship's hull is recognized and put on one side. Notice that a wheel is on top, accidentally aligned with the holes in the hull, so it's invisible to the system. Attention returns to the heap. An attempt to lift out the aligned axle and funnel fails, so other possible projections are considered. The system also considers using its fingertips, but decides against it. It successfully pulls off the forecastle. While looking for a place to put it down, it sees the last wheel which it had not noticed before. The forecastle is put down and identified. The wheel is put away, and the forecastle is discarded. The small heap of two rods is investigated, and a general grab lifts the second car axle. The remaining funnel is located and identified. The axle is put down, identified, and then laid out. The funnel is discarded. All the car parts have been found except for the wheel on the hull. The system searches the table but cannot see the wheel. It calls for help. Now it searches again, finds the wheel. The system completes its search to make sure the state of the table is as it expects. The last wheel is put away, and all is ready for assembling the car. The assembly routines use no visual input and operate by touch and dead reckoning. A simple workbench with a vise is used. The vise is opened, a wheel is put into it, and it's closed. Now an axle is picked up and inserted into the wheel. The hand gropes in a spiral search to find the hole, and checks the axle is located in it by pushing sideways. A hard push on the axle jams it in place. The car body is placed on the workbench against locating stops. The wheel and axle are inserted into the car body. Once more a spiral search is used to find the hole, and force sensing tells when the axle is in place. The wheel and axle are pushed home and the car body is moved out of the way. The second wheel is placed in the vise. Force sensing tells when the wheel is located and when the vise is firmly closed. The second axle is pushed into the wheel. The car body is replaced and the second wheel and axle inserted. At intervals, the hands touch the corner of the workbench to check its position. The car is placed against a wall so that the remaining wheels can be pushed onto the axles. The wheels are put on by another spiral search. The car complete, the parts of the ship are laid out. First the mast and the peg. The superstructure was upside down. It's turned over, but not recognized. So the hull, the forecastle, and the funnel are put away. Returning to the superstructure, it's recognized this time and put away in the correct orientation. The car can now be turned over. 2 stages are needed because the wheels stick out. The ship's mast and funnel have to be distinguished by touch since they are too similar for visual discrimination. The ship assembly begins with the hull placed on the workbench. A locating peg is inserted by feel. Then the funnel. The superstructure is picked up and first located over the funnel, then over the peg, and a firm push drives it home. The forecastle is placed on the bow, and the mast is pushed in a 2-stage operation through the hole in the forecastle and the hole in the hull. The ship is complete and it only remains to launch it to finish this assembly task. Having chosen the kit of parts to be assembled, there follow 2 distinct phases of activity, a teaching phase and then the action phase we've just seen. In the teaching phase, the system is trained and programmed interactively. It is first shown how to recognize the parts. A part is placed under the overhead camera and its name and state are typed into the computer, in this case, car body on right side. The system takes a coarse picture, then a detailed picture, and then analyzes the outline into corners and straight or curved sides. The system must be shown how to pick up the parts and where to put them. Commands are typed in to move the hands into the correct position for grasping, which the system remembers. Similarly, the correct orientation and destination of the part are remembered. The assembly process is programmed interactively. The programmer writes a subroutine in terms of basic movements and simple operations that involve force sensing. He does this by trying the steps out and editing his subroutine to modify and extend it. The force sensing operations are move in a particular direction until a force is encountered, which is used, for example, in closing the vise, and search in a spiral to fit one object into another. For each of these, starting positions must be specified, and they're found by experiment and measurement. After the teaching phase, the system can do the assembly task on its own. When the kit is tipped onto the table and the program is started, it begins by searching. When a heap is to be attacked, it is examined with the overhead camera. Its outline is analyzed and a suitable projection is located. A number of possible positions for the hands are checked visually to determine whether there's room. X marks suitable locations. the best position is chosen. The hands are lowered cautiously, feeling for obstructions. The protrusion is grabbed, lifted, and shaken in case something is on top. Only things pulled from a heap are shaken. Recognized objects are not, hence the wheel left on the hull earlier. After identification, the grabbed part can be laid out. When all parts have been found and laid out, all is ready for assembly. Now we shall see the details of the search for fitting one part into another. The initial attempt misses the hole, and a downward push confirms the axle is not in the hole. A small sideways movement is made, and another try is successful, confirmed by a downward push. The axle can be pushed home until the wheel hits the car body. The second wheel is fitted onto the other end of the axle by a similar process. When the assembly is completed, the car can be turned over to finish the job.